everything can manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What is up, guys? It is your boy Devan with another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. And today we got a special friend, a special guest of mine, Jonathan Lautermilch, even though his last name, it'll throw you off, but it is Lautermilch. And we actually met in the network mastermind that we're both a part of. And I was lucky enough to be a guest on his podcast. And, we did that earlier, or actually last week. And, so we're running it back for you guys and diving really into the mindset. But he is the host of the Real Talk with Real Fit Pros podcast, as well as the host of the Real Talk with Real Business Pros. And he has an awesome company. We're going to be working together sooner than later. So I don't want to give any spoiler alerts on that. We're going to dive into that in a second. But with further ado, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, thank you so much. And by the way, talk about some banger intro music, man. I was like, man, you bring me back to my club days, man. I'm like, it's too early for this. It's not even new.
It's a few intros into the make. Finally, we have our own little custom one. So yeah, no,
dude, it's dope, man. You're giving me inspiration for my show. Mine's just me just running my yapper. You got straight up club music going, man. I love it. I love it. But yeah, it was great to be here today, dude.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. So let's dive into it. I know we dived in a little bit on your podcast. I'm going to put the link to our episode on your podcast in the show notes so that, if you want to explore more, if you're listening right now, you can explore more when we talk more into the business aspects and stuff like that. But today we're really going to dive into the mindset behind the businesses. So what got you into the entrepreneurial space? What was that mindset shift that you're like, you know what, I'm just going to do this on my own?
So it's funny you bring that up because, I interview a ton of entrepreneurs as you do. And I like to ask that question as well. And what I find is most of them are like, I was natural, right? There's like signs at an early age that they were destined to go off and become these big moguls out there. That wasn't me at all, dude. Like I was that kid that my parents were like, man, I don't know if he's going to make it. Like that was me for the longest time, man. So what I was raised by was like, dude, the path to success in life is you go to college, you get a job, you work your way up the ladder, and maybe at age 65, 70, shoot, it's probably going to be like 90 years old now with where we're going as a country. That's another conversation though. To where you can actually stop and go enjoy the fruit of your labor. So for me, I didn't have an example of what it looks like to live that life, but I had an example of what the opposite looked like, which that's what's piqued my curiosity of like, man, there's gotta be a better way to do this thing called life. Cause like, man, I love my parents and, they got their success for what they deem as success for them. Like they're very successful in their own right. But for me, like I value my freedom. Like I don't really care about money so much, but I do put a tremendous amount of value on freedom of where I can spend my time and who I can spend it with and how long, but that costs money. So now we're back to how do you generate money and create those opportunities for ourselves. So where I started with this, man, was, I was grateful enough to have an older brother that was an entrepreneur, which is like the only one in our family. So he was the one guy that I was able to look at and go, hey, there is an example of being a business owner. So fortunately, he was able to mentor me a lot growing up. But at the end of the day, dude, I didn't become an entrepreneur until I made the commitment. It was like when I accepted Jesus as my Christ and Savior at 15. Like I had to make that choice. No one else could. Same with entrepreneurship. I've got this great brother who's teaching me like, hey, you could do this and that and this. But bro, for so many years, I was still an employee mentality who just wanted to bitch about his job, not actually change anything. And it wasn't until my brother was like, Jonathan, I'm not going to talk to you anymore if you're going to keep whining and being a pussy, crying. We said it's the truth. For whining about your problems and not doing anything. And bro, That was exactly what I needed to be told in that moment, because it forced me to get real and take ownership and start looking at my life. And then that was when I started taking the steps. And that's when I started looking at where do I want to start? How do I want to do this? And I started SmartShark as a side hustle when I was managing gyms. Even stepped down as a manager just to be a trainer so I could have the flexibility to build that business. And funny enough, Devin, I know you'll appreciate this. I had to go work for a guy that I used to dominate in the sales rankings. This was at 24-Hour Fitness. And he was my boss now. So I've got this guy, his name's Larry, by the way. It's like, Jonathan, yeah, are you gonna book any more HFCs? Which are, by the way, fitness consultations for y'all that don't understand that world. But here I am, someone that has a very decorated career of like crushing sales records and leading organizations. And I'm stepping down because I've got a bigger play I'm going for. And I'm having to just suck it up, Devin, while I'm having Larry fucking ask me about the HFCs. And I'm like, sure thing, Larry. I'll be right on that, Larry. And I use that as motivation, the push on the times that I wasn't in that gym to build my dream. And within 4 months, I was able to go back to Larry and go, Larry, I want to thank you for the job that you've given me. However, I am moving on to the next venture of my life. Here is my 2-week notice. And it was the best feeling I had ever had in my moment up until that life.
That's awesome. Like that step or that push, at least sometimes that outside force is that driving force. And you, in my opinion, you did it a smart way, right? You didn't have an emotional response. I can't say my entrepreneurial jump was the same.
Dude, and I respect that so much, dude. Like I envy it.
No. Like I'm saying, like mine was similar to your standings, right? Like you had to take a step back so you could focus on what you wanted to do. Mine came from basically a jealous employee basically ratting me out to the owner of the gym. It was a private gym at the time. And basically telling him that I wanted to open my own gym and that I had been working on it on the side. Mind you, I was the manager of the personal trainers as well as the head trainer. But at the same time, like I was working 80 hours a week, right? So like in between sessions and clients, like I wouldn't be on the clock and I would be working on, how am I going to open a gym and all that kind of stuff. Not using anything from the company, but still, regardless, basically the owner pulled me aside, told me I can never do what he does and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. I was like, you know what? Like I tried to give him props. I was like, hey, look, I know, I aspire to be what you are, like I look up to you, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, you can never do this. And he started trying to belittle me. And he was going to move me to a different location because you have to be a Spanish speaker to even survive in that location. And I was like, ain't no way. I was like, I can understand Spanish, but I can't speak it fluently enough to manage the trainers and sell the training and all that kind of stuff. I was like, no. I was like, you know what? I quit. And then he was just like, wait, hold on. I was like, no, you don't think I could do it? I was like, watch this. I was like, I quit. Right. And then I walked out the door. I called my wife, who I think was my fiance at the time. And I was just like, so I'm going to do this entrepreneur thing. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, how are you going to get clients? I was like, I don't know yet. I was like, but all I know is I will stand in front of the grocery store and sell personal training before I go back to work for someone else. I can't do this anymore, Damn. So it's one of those things where you had the smarts to still work and still do it, build up the business and then make that jump versus just take the jump and figure it out before it's rolling. So,
I'll share this with you because so before then I had attempted this business thing before. I had failed at said business thing before when I did this, right? So my first company that I rose up the ranks and did all things, very similar experience that you had. It got ugly towards the end with my relationship with them, which I'm not going to get into all that on the episode today, but that's what pushed me. I was like, you guys, I'm going to do this online coaching thing. I do that. I stay afloat for about, 6-9 months. And then, dude, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I basically started that because I was like, fuck you guys. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't really start that because I was like, I'm really passionate and this is my vision. And I put a lot of clarity into this. It was like, I'm starting this out of spite to you. And when I failed in that and all the money was gone, and then that's when I had to get a job again. That's where over the course of the next 5 years, I started developing the missing skills that I needed, but more importantly, the mentality. Like, dude, the fact that you had that, I wish I had that, because I wouldn't have had to fail one time to make the right decision the second time. So as much as you want to honor me for like, Jonathan, that was really smart what you did, it was only smart because I was stupid the first time.
No, I get it. It's just when I was saying like smart, also it's like you reacted with a more logical step process versus an emotional response. So at the time, even though the first time you did it, maybe there was a more emotional
Oh, it was
response to it,
all emotion, bro.
and
All
then
of it.
as we grow as entrepreneurs, it's one of those things, your emotional intelligence starts to build, right? So me at, that age versus me now and the level of entrepreneur I am now, probably wouldn't have made the same decision. Could I have done it? Yes. But also, like, I probably would have made a more strategic path to just jumping into the fire without figuring out a single thing, but
There's a saying that I think of what you just said, and it's if you're not looking back at yourself a year ago, not thinking that, man, what an idiot, you're still an idiot.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, dude, like, if we're not constantly growing, like, what are you doing? It's like, I guarantee you're repeating mistakes, because, like, dude, we only know what we know. Like, just like you just said, I just gave me a flashback. I'm just thinking about even a year ago, what I thought I knew. There's some things that are no longer true and new things that are true. So I think as we go through this whole entrepreneur thing, we got to learn to get stubborn about holding on to the right truths, but be extremely flexible in the others on how we get to where we want to go. Because, dude, let's be honest, we only know what we know, which really isn't that much. Let's be honest.
Right. And that's the crazy thing is, and I agree with you. And actually, me and my business partner have had this talk a few times, because as entrepreneurs, we're always hungry for that next step, that growth, right? Yeah. And it's one of those things where sometimes we get so wrapped up in the next step that we hit a small plateau or a little basically buffer phase. And then we're like, dude, it's not like what's happening. We start getting harder on ourselves. And then you're like, dude, if you look back a year, for us, 3 years, when we just first opened our first gym, like the amount that we've grown and been able to accomplish in this time frame, launching a franchise, all this stuff, it's like, dude, like, people don't just do that. Like, you got to give yourself, like, in life, you got to give yourself a look back and basically give yourself a little applaud, a pat on the back, and then realize it's okay. Like, there's gonna be ups and downs. That's natural, right? So let's dive in a little bit to what you're doing now. I mean, we've dived into the gym aspect, and I want to start talking about what you do with creating authors.
Yeah, dude. So it's been an evolution. So, man, I'm so fuzzy on time. It's crazy. Like, once you have a kid, it's like, dude, like, a month seems like an hour. So we're in like year 7 of SmartShark, like, officially, right? I don't count the side hustle days. Like, I count the official, like,
right.
LLC. I'm all the way in the seat. We're doing things. Man, we really have gone through this like experiment of finding ourselves. I know that's really weird and vague, like a hippie thing to say that, like, yeah, I went to college in the 60s and I was experimenting. But it's kind of true, man, because like we have this random hodgepodge of skills. So like when we started off making websites for people, right? And I started making websites for people with funnels on there because during that first failed business experiment that I had the worst experience with a website guy. Paid him $3,000, took 9 months to finish the site. Any business coaching that he gave me on top of that was freaking terrible advice looking back. But I didn't know because I'm brand new. And I'm just sitting here like, dude, like, I was so busy chasing like the right shiny button on my website thinking that was the thing that was going to get me going versus actually learning the skills that actually build business. So we started off with making websites, and not pricing them just to rip people off. And, and since we understood who we were working with, like, we knew how to build them and communicate in a way that made it easy for them because we started with personal trainers. From websites, we went to funnels. From there, I realized that if they don't know how to market it, then it just sits there. So then I started teaching them marketing. And then I realized if they can't sell it, doesn't matter if they get the lead. So then I started teaching them sales. So dude, looking back, I got tricked into being a business coach. Like I never had intention of like going out there, but I just kind of was like, dude, if I see a problem, I have to go fix it. So we went through that for several years, and we've helped tons of coaches like all over the country, even across the world too. We're just talking about one guy who disappeared, and I hope he's okay, but he's in the Ukraine. He signed up like during when the Ukraine war started, and he just disappeared. So Nico, if you're out there, buddy, I hope you're okay, man. But anyway, as we've gone through that, I end up joining a mastermind that has an executive level to it, right? It's called Apex. When I joined this, it was the first time I've ever been in a mastermind, much less one of this level, dude. Like I'm talking about, I'm in the room with guys that like they're walking around pocket monies like $100,000, and they're just like, whatever. And I'm just like, holy shit, dude! Like this is a whole another level of thinking. That's where I met Trevor, actually, which is how we were in RBO together. So a little backstory for that. But one of the first things that we were told as executives that like we need to do is to write a book. And at that time, I had no aspirations of writing a book, man, like none. I wasn't even really reading books at the time, if I'm being honest, right? But after listening to them about how writing a book just truly separates you in the marketplace, not like take the bestseller out, take how many copies you've sold, take all that crap out, and just look at the statistics of how many actual published authors there are. It's less than 1% of people in the world becoming a published author. I'm not talking about ebooks that you whipped up on a freaking Canva. I'm talking about like a real book with a hardback, paperback, pages, all things, right? Just by simply doing it, you're in blue ocean territory. So when he said, hey, when you have a best-selling book and you're in an ocean, you've got tons of people that are just like you, who do you think that person's going to pick if they have to pick between the bestseller and the person who hasn't written the book? I was like, that makes sense. He's like, also, if you want to get opportunities, you have to give people a reason to want to bring you on. What's a better way to get people to want to bring you on than going, I am the expert at this with my book? I was like, damn, another good point. This guy needs to stop making good points because I don't want to do this. That's what I was thinking the whole time. And as he got done, I still was like, I'll do it later. Right? That's what you say, right? I'll do it later. And I did. And I watched a couple people go through, finish their book, publish, come out the other side. I saw it literally change their life, Devan. I saw them going to events and people coming up going, I want you to sign my copy of my book. I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, this is like watching J.K. Rowling, and that's my brother. I know him. He's not that special. That was like the brother in me. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was the flesh speaking, right? But watching them be celebrated for just going through the process and putting it out there, I watched it catapult him into levels that he never thought possible. I'm talking about relationships that he never would have been able to have if he hadn't done that. I'm talking about people signing up for his coaching programs and getting him to come out there and speak at their events, all because he was willing to do the book and he marketed it well on the other side. That's when I was like, all right, I'm sold. That was the evidence. So I go in, I hire a publisher. I go through the process. We get it done 6 months. And then that's when I marketed my book. And then this is where I didn't get bestseller, right? Because I didn't understand the marketing or the back end. I hired this publisher that was recommended. This was the publisher that was like everyone go to. So I did. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't really have a good experience with them. Like a lot of it was they were sending me back line edits and revisions. And I'm running a company. Like I paid you $8,000. I need you to go in and ghost edit, ghost write, do what you got to do to get this to where I want it. Cause I don't have time to go back and forth with you on this. Right. So between that component where I basically had to take control and go get this done by this date, the book coming out on this date. That's how much I had to grab the reins. And I'm like, I shouldn't have had to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So from that experience to not getting bestseller, after that, my wife comes to me and she goes, "Hey, I've always wanted to write a book. Can you tell me where you fucked up?" And I was like, and part of me was a little mad. I'm like, I was like, okay, here's what I fucked up. I didn't go into the back end, and I didn't really pay as much attention as I should to the categories, as well as do a little bit better job with the marketing. So I shared with her those things. By God, Devin, she went out there. She freaking self-published her book, by the way. Edited it, revised it. She outsourced the cover. She did do that, and some of that stuff. But she did everything else herself. Put the book out there. I think about like 5 or 6 months later after mine, and she got bestseller within 2 hours of launch day. Like, she had bestseller before I woke up that morning, dude. I woke up and there's a text in my DM from her, like, "Who got bestseller?" And I had two emotions. I had one that was like, "I'm so proud of you. You are amazing. Wow, like, what an accomplishment, and you got bestseller." There's other part of me, I was like, "You motherfucker." Because once again, I'm like, I didn't get bestseller, and I paid $8,000, right? So after that, well, people started asking us, like, "Well, all right, like, let me ask you about the book stuff. Like, how does that work?" Right? So we started helping some people with their books, and well, they started getting bestseller, and then we started getting into doing book collaborations where, hey, let's get a bunch of authors on here where they each get a chapter, and that way we can do this as a team effort, right? We started publishing and doing those and hitting bestseller, and we just put out our 7th collaboration this past Tuesday, another bestseller. So that's 7 bestsellers in a row that we've put out there. So I share that finally revealed that we're a publishing company, but we didn't go out to become a publishing company. We kind of tripped into it at the end of the day, and between my wife and her awesome skill set. She's our chief editor. I'm the CEO. I take care of the visionary components and helping our authors in terms of the business side. And it's just magical, dude, how when you put both of us together, we have this perfect skill set to help people become authors, and not just authors, but best-selling authors, and then how to leverage that moving forward to dominate in your marketplace. And Devin, you and I both come from the fitness space, so we both have this appreciation for transformation. But man, there's just something cooler about getting someone bestseller, man. Like, I love helping people with 6-packs, and I love the mindset that transcends to. But man, walking somebody through imposter syndrome to that champion circle to go, "I did it," it's the best feeling in the world. It's why I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing it.
No, see, that's awesome. And it is, I mean, there is that similar feeling when you see a client, like in the fitness space, you see a client that has an amazing transformation, and they're super like excited to show you or tell you. And then, with your publishing company, it's like the same thing. All of a sudden they're sending you a DM or a text before you even wake up. Like, it did happen, and that reward, both of us, and that's why, I wanted to bring you on too. Like, both of us have a similar core value and a similar drive in business, and it's not monetary. It's more for that impact, right? Impacting as many lives as we can. And it's kind of selfish in a way, in our own way, because we do it to impact others' lives, but we do it because what we get out when we impact someone's life, that feeling that you get when someone is that excited to tell you the work that you guys did together, it worked, and seeing their face or seeing their expression, it's almost like a natural high for us. And that's it. So it's a little selfish in that spot, but at the end of the day, it's, selfless too.
Well, I want to share this with you because you bring up a great point. So in 2014, and this was before I did my first business, right? And I'm being coached. I go through this program called AMP, Autonomy, Mastery, and Purpose. And the whole point of this program is to walk you through and help you find your purpose, right? And at this time, I'm like, dude, I'm 23 years old. I'm full of creatine and protein and full of false confidence, dude. I don't know who I am. Like, I look like I'm confident, but I'm a scared boy at the end of the day. So I'm going through this process, and it walks you through how to discover what that is. be honest with you, I don't remember what the process was. I don't. I just remember going through it. But the end result is you would record yourself listening, like speaking this statement, which is this I am truth statement. And the idea behind it is if you speak that, record it, and you listen to it while you sleep, you will actually start to train your unconscious mind, right? Because your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a truth and a lie. It's how we're able to smoke a cigarette and not have our body immediately like convulse and reject that substance, right? Because it doesn't know the difference. So I did this for years, dude. Like my wife was like, "You're fucking nuts, man." I'm like, "Shut up, honey. I'm changing my life. I've been watching Tony Robbins." So I'm listening to this, dude, for the longest time. And I'm like, I'm not seeing any of this manifest. So I'm not talking about speaking into existence. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about changing the way you think. And when you were raised the way that I was raised, there's a lot of rewiring that needed to be done. And I could share with you my purpose because I drilled it into my brain so hard, I have it memorized till at this day. And that statement is this: I am the light in the darkness, lighting a path in which all my brothers and sisters may follow, so they may be released by the shackles placed upon them by life. That is who I am. What I do is book publishing. What I have done is a lot of stuff. Personal training, business coaching, but everything comes from that spirit. And I look at what I'm doing, and if it doesn't align with that, I don't do it. So I share that because once you figure out why God puts you on this earth, it's your responsibility to protect it, and it's your responsibility to own it and act when you are presented with opportunities in which you know you can act. Then it's our responsibility. If we're not aware of a way we can help, we're not judged for that. But once we're aware of, hey, this is how I can help and add value, and I know I have the skill set in order to do so, you best damn get out there and do it.
No, 100%. I agree with you. And that is an awesome, core value of awesome, self-realization. What was the point that you realized, or I guess, what was the point that you came up with that, that saying or that metaphor for yourself? Because I think that's huge. You didn't word it in a way that, I just want to have a positive impact. You said, this is why I'm here. This is my purpose. And you gave your definition of your purpose, but this is what I do, right? When did you get that mindset for that?
So, dude, it's funny. So this is 2014. I'm talking to my brother. I'm watching like every motivational video on like E.T., the hip hop preacher, like all that shit, dude, all of it. I'm just consuming. And I remember at the time I was watching Braveheart. I do remember that because what I did with that recording is I put the Braveheart music when he does his speech in the background. So I got to hear that Scottish music on loop all night with me like doing my statement. So I don't really remember exactly how I arrived to that. I just remember going through that program and just having it walk me through that. And I had other parts to that statement too. Like I had, I will have this by this year and this time.
Right.
And by the way, none of that part happened. Right.
Yeah. The affirmations.
I think I had, I'm going to be a vice president of a company making $200,000 a year. Like it was vague because I didn't know. Right. But what I did figure out was the purpose. And I'm talking about this today because I just had a revelation this week. And as I'm sharing this story with you, I'm having it again. That's literally what I did with the book publishing. I went first. I cut through the path. I go, I came up the other side. I was like, all right, guys, it's pretty cool over here. Here's how we get on this side. Hey, Jonathan, how do we avoid the alligators where we saw you get fucked up on? Because we don't want to get fucked up on those alligators. I'm like, hey, don't do what I did. Go this way. And that's been my whole life, Devin, if I look back. In everything I do, I go first, and then I give you the best advice I can on how to get through and not have the same mistakes that I make. And what happens is when you run that same path long enough, over time, you become the path master.
No, definitely. And I think it's one of those things where if you don't already know your purpose, right? And let's say someone that's listening and you're trying to figure out your purpose, sometimes it just comes to you, like you're saying for yourself, right? You don't know how you arrived at that. You just all of a sudden had a realization.
You got to start asking the questions, though.
Right.
I do know that. So one of the questions I ask myself when I'm like stuck is I'll go, Jonathan, what do you really want? What do you actually want? And I start to take away the expectations. I start to take away the responsibilities. And I just really strip it away. What do I actually want?
Right.
Not what my wife wants, not what Joe Biden, not what Trump, not what my mama wants, not what my employees want, not what my customers want. What do I want?
Right.
And once again, you got to dig deep, because what you think you want isn't really what you want.
Yep.
Hey, I want a truck. No, you don't. You want to feel better about yourself. You want to be respected. That's why you're buying a truck. You ain't buying a truck because you want a truck. Let's be honest. If there's no women on this planet, guys wouldn't have any drive to do the things that we do. We'd just be sitting around playing Xbox in our underwear all fucking day.
No, 100%. It's asking the right questions. Yeah, like for sure. Like if you don't know what your purpose is, it will come to you, but you do have to be asking yourself the right questions, right? What do you want? What does your dream life look like? Right? If you can you paint that picture in your mind? And not just after how you said on, before with the affirmations, the manifestations, I want to be the vice president of a blah, 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 blah. It's like, why? What is that? What is that going to do for you? And then when you answer what that's going to do for you, why is that going to do that for you? Why is that going to do that for you? And if you can get 3 to 5 levels down into your whys, usually the purpose will start to reveal itself, right? So you want to be a millionaire. Why? Like, you're going to be a millionaire. Then all of a sudden you're like, well, shit, now what? Right. So it's like, you have to find your purpose, not just set goals. Right.
The other thing I think of too is, what is this thing that you do that's with ease? And I don't mean within ease, like I'm doing this because it's easy. It's like, no, I do this and it's easy to me.
Right.
Those are the natural things that I have found. And that's where a lot of people, like, they've got this awesome fruit underneath their tree, but they end up getting deceived and tricked into not even realizing that it's actually fruit. So they spend all their time looking at these different things. And for example, like, how many people have you met that started a passion business and failed? It's like, yeah, I know you're passionate about it, but you suck at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's great. Like, I'm passionate about music, but bro, you don't want to hear me sing. I have a terrible voice. That's actually, like, when I was a kid, I remember my family was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be a singer. My sister just laughed at me. It was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that. Did it hurt my feelings? Absolutely. Was she right, though? Yeah, dude, I can't sing for shit. Right? So that's probably not why God put me on this earth. So once again, what are my natural skill sets that I do just naturally better, that, like, hey, man, you could train all day at this, but you're going to have a rough time beating me because I wake up and this is what I do, right? I think that's what people need to spend more time finding. Quit trying to find the thing that's like the silver bullet. Like, if I get good at this, I'll be successful. No, figure out the thing that you're naturally pulled towards, and then go, how do I master this?
Right.
How do I get really good at this thing? And then as you go along the way, now that you're clear on why you're doing it and what you're doing, the how's easy then, because you already have your destination mapped out. You can figure out the other skill set or the thing that you need to get along the way. And that's where people get lost, man. They get focused on the things on the quest that they need to get, versus, man, getting clarity on where you're going and why you're going, and just getting up every day and walking forward. That's how you get there.
No, definitely. And I agree with you on that. And like, it's one of those things too, where you might have a passion for it, or you might have a reason why you're doing something. And as long as you have an opportunistic mindset, meaning that you're open to opportunity, and you're not just, it needs to be this, like, I need to be a singer and there's nothing else, right? Like, for example, for you, like, you wrote a book, there was a purpose behind you writing the book, and then that led into you being open-minded about helping your wife, and then all of a sudden other things started happening, and now you are where you are. Same thing with me being a trainer and then wanting to open a gym, and all of a sudden again it starts snowballing into all these other areas. But you have to, like, your first goal or your first dream job, and just because it's your purpose doesn't mean that's going to be the exact version of it, right? It may escalate, it may, you know, mold itself into this niche of that area, and that's where you might just kill it, right?
Yeah, so I pulled off, and I can't find the book, but I'll talk about it. So a lot of what you're talking about right now, Devin, is based. It's not based off, but it's making me think of The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. Have you ever heard of that book?
No, I've never read it.
So it's an older book. There's actually a movie of it. Nick Nolte's in it, for crying out loud, and he's definitely doing some Nick Nolte shit in that movie. It's great. Well, anyway, the whole point of the movie is this high school kid that's like this prodigy for gymnastics. Like, this guy's like going places. He's crushing records. Like, he's a total Chad, dude. Every girl wants him. Perfect body. Awesome, dude. And as he's going through this, he ends up bumping into this guy at a random gas station that is referred to in the book as Socrates, which is Nick Nolte in the movie. I won't go into all the different lessons and their conversations, but essentially Socrates becomes a mentor to this kid. This kid ends up getting to the point to where, like, you know, he's about to like really go places, like go to the Olympics, and he's going full ride to college and all this. Well, during one of the events, one of the competitions, he ends up breaking his back and becoming paralyzed. So here he is, someone, an elite, just warrior, like he's just dedicated his whole life to this one profession, this one practice, this one goal, this one mission, this one thing. And when he had it taken away from him, he didn't know who he was anymore. If I don't have my legs, I'm not a gymnast. If I'm not a gymnast, who am I? So he has to go through this whole like breaking down in order to be built back up, to learn the lesson that you are not what you do. You are who you are. What you do is how you express that thing. You're just expressing it through this. And by the way, Socrates ends up getting him healed, and he gets back into gymnastics, and he's looking at him like, you want me to do what? He's like, yeah, I want you to go back out there. He's like, fuck you, man. So it's like this back and forth. So Socrates, like, you got to give up gymnastics. He finally gives up. He goes, now you got to get back into it. He's like, what is wrong with you, man? But he's doing this because he had to break the ego down. And that is why we attach ourselves to false idols like, I am my company I work for, or I am the MAGA, or I am the left side, or I am BLM. No, you are who God made you to be, wonderfully and beautifully made. Stop by wrapping yourself in these other things and trying to use that to fill your purpose. You were made for so much more than to be a logo for a company.
Right. No, I mean, that's 100% on point. It kind of reminds me, I don't want to butcher it, the ancient like Chinese proverb. The one where it's like there's a farmer and his son are working on the farm, and basically the son's riding the horse, riding the horse falls, he breaks his leg, and then, you know, and people are like, oh man, like that's so bad that happened. He's like, well, yeah, maybe. And everyone's kind of confused. All of a sudden there's a draft for the military, his son can't go because he has a broken leg, and everyone's like, oh man, like your son's so lucky that he doesn't have to get drafted. And then the farmer responds, well, maybe. And it just keeps going down the line of him saying maybe, and all these events happening. It'd be bad and then good, and then good and then bad. And it's just one of those things you got to realize that, you know, life happens, but who you are and what you can do about the situation is what you can do. If you can't do anything about the situation, you can't do anything about it, right?
And here's the other way I look at it too, is like, if you ever like, and I know you, like, I would meet a trainer that was just like awesome personality, friendly, like you didn't really have to like push them to want to be that, they just were, versus the trainers that like wanted to hide in the office and, you know, God forbid you go out there and talk to someone in the gym. You know what I mean? It's like you and I both know out of those two, like which one is going to go off and be successful and which one's not. I think it's the same case that applies here, man.
Yep, 100%.
At the end of the day.
100%. So before we wrap up, I like to ask everyone a simple question. It's simple because it's a short question, but it's not simple in the answer, hopefully.
Ooh.
So hypothetically speaking, right?
Okay.
You get a message that you get to leave on this legacy wall, right? Everything that you've accomplished, everyone that you've basically talked to and, left an impact that's, behind the scenes, you get one message for the world on your legacy wall. What is that message?
Man, this is what it feels like sitting on the other side. Normally I'm the one asking this question. I haven't answered. I've never answered this one, ironically. Man, there's so many things. Like, once again, like, one of my personal mottos is go get what you're worth, and that's really just a reminder to people. They're like, are you really getting what you're worth? Like, in your fitness, in your relationships, in your finances, like. Because at the end of the day, like, if you don't define your worth, someone else always will, and it's going to be far below market value, if you know what I'm saying. But I gotta go with this one. Put God first. I got to do that, man, and I'll tell you why. So, this past year, I'm coming out of a season of where, dude, I had a real transformation and just internal transformation. So I had a massive health scare. So I had a cancer scare, to be exact about it. Basically had this mass forming off of my sternum. And dude, as soon as that happened, I'm thinking, man, there goes the timer. I got to do everything I can to make sure my family is set up for if and when that time comes. So that was my way of thinking. Well, I finally get to a point, dude, where, like, I'm carrying this by myself. I'm not telling anyone. I'm not seeing anyone. I'm just freaking out. I finally break down. I'm crying to my wife, and I just reveal, like, hey, like, here's what's going on and all this. End up going to the doctor, getting treated, which, dude, that's like the scariest thing. Like, I'm like, most people are scared of, like, clowns and stuff and sharks, and I'm scared of doctors for some reason. They scare the shit out of me. Anyway, I go, and come to find out, it's not cancer. It's excess cartilage that had been growing off of my sternum, and they don't know why. They said that it's one of the rarest things that could happen, because typically, like, this is when these things happen, and that didn't happen to me. So I go through and I find out this thing that I'm like, I'm basically living my life as if I'm dying. Now I find out I'm not dying. So, dude, I was living for so long just thinking, like, I've got this X amount of time to live, and my time's done. I got to do the best I can. And I leaned into God and I prayed. And of course, I'm like, man, give me one more shot, man. And I promise you I'm going to do all these things, which I was already doing those, but I just upped up. I basically, like, I was a good employee, but I was like, dude, I'm going to be the best employee you ever had. If you just help me out with this. And he did. And as I went through that, bro, that whole life scare just changed my perception. I started looking at what really matters. And it was my wife and my daughter. And as I was looking at that, well, how am I living my life? Wasn't living my life the way that was conducive to that at that time. So overhauled my business, overhauled the team, changed the direction, leaned into book publishing, all these different things that came from the scariest moment of my life and me leaning into God. I believe that happened for me, not to me, in order to change the way I was thinking so God could point me in the right direction. And I believe the more that I've put God first in my life for the last couple of years, that is really the catalyst to all the great things that are happening for us. So yeah, the long and the short of it is put God first and watch your life start to grow.
No, that's an awesome one. That was a great one. So where can people connect with you? Where can people learn more if they want to become a best-selling author or learn about, writing a book?
So I live on Facebook, so you can find me at Jonathan Lautermilch on Facebook. I'll get the hyperlink over on the pie. You can click on it. I don't expect you to try to spell that out. Like, there's no way I'm spelling that name. And then also you can check out our main website, the SmartShark.com. We've got all of our services, all the things. We've got a whole section where we talk about our smart publishing specifically. We've even put together a training on how to become a best-selling author within 6 months, where we literally go through our process and show you step by step on, if you want to become a best-selling author, here's how you do it. And if you want to get it done within 6 months, here's how you do that as well. So you can snag all of that at thesmartshark.com.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming on today. Guys, make sure that you guys share this with a friend. I know there was a bunch of nuggets in this one that you can take away and, increase your personal development and increase your life. But Jonathan, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and coming on the Mindset Cafe.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure.
We'll talk soon.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. 'Cause in the game of life, mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slack.